Okay, everyone please take seat, please. The traffic in Shanghai sometimes, is difficult, so we are a little late. Thank you for your patience. Thank you for your patience. Today, actually, is a very interesting talk by Mr. Bennett, Minister of Economy, Israel. We all know that Israel is a small country, and Israel faced limited natural resource, difficult social environment, but Israel are well known for its innovation, for its entrepreneurship, and they live quite well. That's a miracle. How do we know the miracle? Let's hear from Mr. Bennett. Let's welcome Mr. Bennett.
Shalom to everyone. It's great to be here. This is already my third visit to בשנגחאי, and every time I come I see a new angle. So I'm the Minister of Economy of Israel, but I'm not going to be talking about the work of government, because that's boring. We're going to talk about founding a company. In my previous life, I was a founder of a new Israeli startup. And really what I want to share with you is the mistakes I made. And hopefully you'll be able to make new, original mistakes and learn from mine. And through the story of this startup, I think we can get a few insights. So together with three friends, one day we decided to start up a company. Okay? And interestingly, we didn't have an idea. So it was first putting the group together, and only then, I don't need this.
One startup.
That shows you what Israelis know about technology. So we didn't have an idea. We got together. The three smart people and me, and every day we spent time in the attic of one of my friends, his father's office, and we got together and threw out ideas and decided, okay, let's analyze this idea. Everyone would take a few missions, and then we'd come back, analyze. We had our first idea was to do this was '99, the start of when the internet was really taking off. And we thought of doing online arbitration through the internet, right? And we dumped that, and after a few weeks, we zoomed into an idea, and the idea was one single-use credit card numbers, because there was online theft, people hack into Amazon, so you'll use a credit card number once, at the end of the transaction it'll expire, and then if someone hacks that database of numbers, they have useless garbage, right? So we got together and began pitching VCs, but I guess my first and perhaps the biggest insight of all is precisely the fact that we put the team together first and only then the idea. Because the single biggest decision you're going to make in the history of your startup is who's your partner. There's nothing more important than that. The ideas will come and go. The business will fail, and you'll see in a moment. The business failed not once, not twice, but 3 times before it finally took off. Spoiler, there was an exit at the end. But I'm back to the start. And I think what you want to look for or avoid in a partner, you want to avoid a part-time partner. There's no part-time startups, okay? A startup is about 26 hours a day, and you can't go and do your day job and then sort of dance in for a few hours at night. No startup will go through that, because a startup is like a journey up a mountain that, imagine going up the Himalayas to the Everest. Each time you go up, you think that's the peak. You reach it and you see it was only a local peak, and then there's another one. but then rocks are rolling down on you. So it's so hard, no part-time partner is going to do it. It's either you're fully committed or go do something else like be an accountant. Pardon, I didn't mean to hurt any accountants. I'll just tell you, I don't like lawyers or accountants. The world would be a better place without lawyers. And I know there's lawyers here. So the other traits, you want to avoid pessimistic people. You have to have optimistic people because life is so bad during the beginning of a startup that you have to have people who are optimistic and when they see a problem can see the solution. And when they see a problem, they realize that this problem is also afflicting our potential competitors. So it's not a problem, it's an upside. It's a barrier for the bad guys, right? You also want to avoid greedy people. And my point is, you want everyone to wake up every morning thinking how to make the pie bigger instead of thinking about how my portion of the pie is bigger. Who cares about the portion of the pie? You want the pie bigger. And you need smart partners. You got to be smart, period. There's no way around that. And finally, you want to avoid the philosophers. Okay? You don't need to pontificate. You need people who do good execution. A startup doesn't have to have an amazing strategy. It needs to execute well. Now, execution doesn't guarantee success, but lack of execution guarantees failure. So, the longest term strategy we ever had was about 4 months on a good day. Because a startup, you always want to adapt to what's going on. So here's the deal. We had this idea. We began pitching VCs, venture capitalists. And I remember the first time I looked at the VC and we made the pitch. And I forgot to do the basic thing, which is to ask for the money. You have to ask. I thought that if I described this beautiful venture and the amazing product, they'll just hail money at me. You have to ask for the business. So finally, we learned that lesson, and we asked for $1.5 million, and that was like an amazing sum in those times. I was living at about $300 a month income. And a few things regarding raising money from VCs. Really, I'm not going to tell you how to build business plans because that's what you learn here. I want to talk practically. The biggest mistake you can make with VCs is going to one VC. You always have to go to several investors. I would say 5 or 6 venture capitalists simultaneously because you want that competition. They want you to be they want them to be your sole opportunity, but you always want that competition because the worst thing VCs can do is not to say no, is to sort of lag you on and say we're interested and let you incur all the due diligence and then see how it's going. You always want to have options. Also what we did is right after every meeting, one of us sat in the meeting and wrote mistakes that we made and questions that were asked, and we were always adapting and improving and preparing for the tough questions. Also, never say to the VCs, and this is a conservative estimate. Don't use that term. Just say what you think the business plan will do. Anyway, they're going to cut it by 70% whatever you do. So you don't have to they're not going to say, man, these guys said they're conservative. Let's double their forecast. That ain't going to happen. Anyway, we got the money and we started running forward with this product. And then we had a second round. We raised $10 million. And it was amazing. What a ride we had. We were building the software, hired 70 employees. 70 employees, burning $1 million a month. Everything was perfect except one thing. We didn't sell. The potential customer was a bank. Were banks. We were trying to sell to Chase, the bank. The R&D center was in Israel. Right away, we moved to New York. Israel is such a tiny economy that it doesn't really have a meaningful market. So almost all Israeli companies from day one are international. They skip the domestic market, which is not interesting, and they go international. It's a downside, but it's also an upside because we're forced to be international from day one. So here's where we stand. Brought in a big shot American CEO, okay, paid him $400,000 a year because we raised $10 million. We've got money. And a year into the company, we're burning a lot of money, no sales, and turns out that we had two competitors with the same brilliant idea from India and from Ireland, right? India, Ireland, and Israel, 3 eyes. And I hated those guys. And the few banks that did buy, they bought from our competitors. Now, month after month, I would come to the board and present what's going on. And I would say, all we have to do is sell to 3 banks and then the revenue will, we'll get it. And every month we move the Excel sheet 1 column to the right and another column to the right. So the forecast was always the same, but reality was bad. Finally, my CFO came over and said, Naftali, you're committing suicide for the company. You're going to kill the company if we don't do something. And at that point, we realized that it's not working. And we let go of the American CEO. I had to fire 2/3 of the company. From 70, we went down to 27 employees. And most importantly, we dumped the product. This big product, we dumped it. We saw another opportunity, seized that opportunity, and here the big lesson is facing reality, facing bad news. We failed at looking at reality as it is, not as we want it to be, not as the business plan says it should be, but what it actually is. And from that point on in the company, what I tried to do is create an environment where everyone tells bad news early. Everyone. Any problem, I want to hear it. I don't want filters. And more than that, anyone who comes with bad news gets encouragement. Hey, thanks for telling me that. As opposed to get the hell out of my room. Right? Because it's how we, the managers, respond to bad news will really teach the employees whether they want to tell bad news or not. If you kill the messenger, you're ultimately killing yourself. And it's not what you say, it's how you act de facto when bad things happen. So then this other product, which I won't, there was a new regulation in America that all credit card issuers had to comply with, and they said you can buy software that complies with this regulation from any vendor, and we were one of the vendors. How boring is that, right? We were a software compliance provider, and there were another 20 competitors. But these were about 3 years where we worked really, really hard, and ultimately nailed one big customer after another, Bank of America and Chase, not for great prices, but we did it. And you might ask how, because it was sort of a commodity. The one thing that I might say, the reason we beat some of our bigger American competitors, we're an Israeli company, is simply because we tried harder. And it sounds strange, but on every RFP, we would work harder. We would create a more detailed, we would work much, much harder, and ultimately, some customers don't care about it, they only look at price, but some people do care about that. Anyway, so the company's already doing okay, surviving, all right? Not great, because you're never going to do great when you've got 19 competitors selling pretty much the same piece of software. And then I'm a CEO, and we're going to do strategy now. So we decided, okay, we're okay. Now we need the next product. So here's what I did. I formed 5 committees. Each one analyzes a market and a product, and they did a month of strength, weaknesses, SWOT analysis, all that stuff from MBA, and came back, and we had a full seminar day of presentations, blah, 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 blah. And after this full seminar, the result was nothing. Nothing. We didn't do anything. 3 months on, and then we keep on, with this boring regulatory product. 3 months into this, after this resounding failure, even though we had this huge plan, suddenly we see there's this new phenomenon. This was back then called phishing. You know what phishing is? PH phishing. It's email fraud, where you get an email from your bank that says, "Hey, I'm Citibank, and we need to check your account. Just to send us your details." This was the beginning. Now everyone knows and no one answers, but back then, now we saw this, and a few of the folks came into my room, and we were sort of chatting. Can we do something? I mean, this really has nothing to do with what we've done until now, but can we do something about this new phishing thing? And we talked for about an hour, and we thought maybe we should open up a command center and that would take care of these phishing attacks on behalf of banks, and somehow close the phishing attacks. Call up the ISP, the internet provider, close the site, tell them that they're under a phishing attack. And we began the analysis. And after about an hour, the VP marketing, we said, should we do this? And he came up with a profound insight. His profound insight was, what the hell? Let's do it. That was his insight. So we did it. And we announced, we came out with, within days, we signed deals with anti-spam providers that would give us billions of emails so we could analyze them and see whether there's phishing attacks. We opened an anti-fraud command center. Doesn't that sound cool? Anti-fraud command center, which actually was 2 students sitting next to our computer in Tel Aviv. And we announced the first anti-fraud command center in the world that's going to protect banks, and it gives a 24/7 service, and we built it. But here's the thing, in startups, the vision always is before reality. That's a nice way to say it. Vision is always ahead of reality. Bam! In 30 days, we sold to Barclays, which was the biggest UK bank there, and we sold it for $30,000 a month. Now, just in comparison, our big product that would take a year and a half to sell and another year to implement was about $6,000 a month. And then afterwards, Bank of America and Chase and all around the world, it came flowing in, and those 2 students turned into 5 and into 12, and we added features, and we added... I'm not sure what my point here is, but I think the point is, when you're a startup, the what the hell approach is a good approach. Because basically, you don't have much to lose, right? I'm not talking about if you're, I don't know, Microsoft or Apple. Not sure Microsoft has much to lose. But if you're just a startup, take a chance. Worst case, it'll fail. You'll try another one. So, and this really catapulted us into a big success, and then really later on the exit, we were acquired by a big American firm, and the rest is history. So I guess really the biggest lessons I have by far is, who are your partners to the venture? I would not suggest ever going alone. At least I personally would not consider that. It's a tough journey. Emotionally, it's tough. You want to have someone to hug and cry with when things go wrong. You want to have a wall to bounce things off. I think the best number is about 3 or 4 or 3. 3 is sort of the magic number. Try out things. Luck is a big piece of success. In fact, it's the main one. But I want to caveat that a bit. So there's a joke in Israel. We have the Western Wall, right, where Jews go and pray. So Jews, anyone can come with a little note and put it in, and you can hope to get married, so you push it in. I want to start up, you push it in. So there's a famous joke where during 30 years, there was this guy who every week he would go to the Western Wall and write down a little note. I want to win the lottery this week, and would push it in. Didn't win, and again, 30 years. So the angels come to God and say, "Hey, God, what's the deal? Give this Moshe guy, let him win. 30 years he's been pushing in the note." And finally God says, he has to buy a ticket. And that's precisely the point with luck. Look, here's the deal. When you're a venture, and when you're a person for that matter, good stuff is happening, opportunities, right? They're flying next to you, and bad stuff is happening. All of life. Good things. Imagine these little missiles of good opportunities. They're flying next to you. Strategy is this thing where you sort of plan 30 years forward. It doesn't work. I have a different strategy. The different strategy is build a very versatile company, a very quick company that can adapt. Build a company that sees, that opens its eyes and looks at these little stars flying by. Missiles, I said, right? I'm an Israeli. Stars, right? And if you have good eyes on these stars, and you're quick enough to adapt, then good luck happens to you. Okay? And so it's way more important to be quick, to have open eyes and send your arms out to see everything that's going on. Quickly react. Be the first one to jump on that opportunity. And that for a startup, I think, is a much better strategy than really thinking you can anticipate anything into the future. It's hard enough to anticipate the past. So I guess my final lesson is do it. Do it. I think the experience of being in a startup environment is fun, it's exhilarating, it's horrible, it's miserable. But what's life? You don't want your life to be just this calm line. Life is about ups and downs. It makes life interesting. You never remember the day you went home and watched TV. Right? You're never going to remember, oh man, 20 years ago, I remember. I came home and I watched TV. It just doesn't happen. You do remember the day you screwed up the biggest deal in history because you made a mistake. And you do remember the day that you got together the biggest victory. So that's, I think, what life is about being inside, in the field, in the arena, fighting, failing, maybe succeeding, but that's much better life than just rolling a pond. Thank you very much.
And enlightening speech. So how many minutes do we have for Q&A?
We can have, you know what, if I may, I want to speak a couple of minutes about what's going on in Israel on the high-tech environment, if I may. Now I'm taking off one hat and putting on another one as Minister of Economy. and I need a hat, you can see. So Israel's high tech is booming. Israel is not good at some things. We're not always the best at long-term planning projects. Israel is about innovation. And frequently I'm asked why. I don't even know why, but I think it might have to do with our ancient history and our recent history. Our ancient history, the Jewish history, is about 3,800 years old. We used to have a Jewish state in Israel from about 3,000 years ago till 2,000 years ago. Then the Jewish people were expelled by the Romans and spread all around the world, and then sort of kicked out from one country, moving to another for 2,000 years. And when you keep on moving from one country to another, and you don't know when it's going to happen, so you don't want to invest in real estate. You want to invest in education. And that's what the Jewish people did for 2,000 years. 2,000 years ago, there was a decision to stop being an agriculture society, which you can't take with you, and become a scholar society, so everyone learned to read and write, and that's what's been going on. In our more recent history, we're in a tough neighborhood. Israel is in a tough neighborhood. I don't think that's a big secret. And being in a tough neighborhood, both from the aspect of having no natural resources, we barely have water, we didn't have oil or energy, and from being surrounded by enemies, we have to be always very resourceful about everything. And I think that basically the bottom line of what I'm saying is necessity is the mother of innovation. Long story short, it's an amazing environment. We have the highest startups per capita in the world, the highest patents per capita in the world, the third largest amount of NASDAQ companies after United States, Canada, and I think maybe China now. It's but in absolute numbers, not in per capita. Everyone's starting up stuff. Everyone's always starting up stuff, and it's fascinating. It's okay to fail. In the Israeli military, at a very young age, you typically assume considerable responsibility. So I myself was a company commander at the age of 22. So you look back and you see 100 soldiers walking behind enemy territory. That's scary, all right? And then it puts into perspective losing an RFP. Okay, it's not like walking on a landmine, right? So it sort of gives you perspective. And Israel is open for business. Israel is open for business. We want to do business. We're an international-oriented country. And I think certainly with China, we have a big future. I'll take a couple of questions. And I'm going to turn into a pumpkin if we're going to miss the flight. So I just, again, want to thank you very much for your hospitality.
The formal session was stopped here, but there's a few minutes left, so you can, if you have any question, you can approach the minister, and then I think it should be outside, right? Yeah. All right. Okay. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.